24-year-old Petaluma native Hayden Clemenok was on a hiking trip with a group of friends before he disappeared into a creek.
A missing Yosemite Park employee was found dead.
Hundreds of people are annually declared missing in national parks and forests, many of them being children. If that is not puzzling enough, most of them are never found. Hence, it is never known whether they wound up dead or stayed alive. How does this occur in national parks that have a high surge of tourists? Join us as we reveal the disappearances that made the Yosemite National Park ranger never the same after witnessing. People keep disappearing in Yosemite National Park. Yosemite National Park, the second largest park in the U.S., is a vast, unspoiled wilderness with more than 750 miles of trails, making it a hiker's dream. Roughly 5 million people visit the Yosemite National Park annually. Occasionally, the thrilling park tends to transform into a nightmare of search and rescue. These lost people, while visiting the park, did not become missing by being eaten by bears or dying naturally. They simply disappeared into thin air. Since their time of disappearance till now, no evidence of them has been found, which means decades have passed without evidence for these cases. To compound this mystery disappearances, the majority of the victims were hikers or lovers of outdoor sports, and some of them were relatively familiar with the terrain of the park. In several cases, they were traveling on well-used hiking trails. Notorious for being ranked third position annually in areas where people go missing, the park's details become stranger the more you explore it. Similar to most national parks, it is historic for unfamiliar sightings, experiences, and legends to be experienced from time to time. One of the remarkable legends is the hundreds of missing children. The disappearances being surrounded by nearly supernatural circumstances make this one of the biggest mysteries in the history of a reputable national park. Missing 411. In February 2013, David Paulides, a retired police officer, published a book titled Missing 411 Western United States and Canada Unexplained Disappearances of North Americans That Have Never Been Solved. After being tipped off by a park ranger, Paulides dedicated 4 years and 9,000 hours to investigating missing persons. Both adults and children were included in the mysterious disappearances, and some of these disappearances occurred in broad daylight, in the presence of family and friends. The discovery of geographical clusters of missing people, including groups of children who vanished without a trace from the park, is one of his research's most valuable findings. Unexpected patterns, observed by Pauline. Unusual details were common to all of the disappearances, which startled experienced investigators and left Paulides perplexed with unanswered questions. After reviewing hundreds of disappearance cases, unexpected patterns emerged. Some instances of these patterns were the sudden disappearances of children under 10 years old, with no signs of struggle recorded. Trained tracking dogs could not locate or trace the scent of the missing children, and the trail always led up to a mountain whenever the dogs located a scent. Since the missing children were young, it was no surprise that curious kids fancy explorations, easily lose their way, and become tempting prey to human or animal predators. Paulides assumed that since there were no signs of struggle, either no abduction occurred, or the abductors intrigued the children. Sometimes weather patterns could be responsible for the inability of tracking dogs to find a scent, but it did not seem that the weather was always a factor. Moreover, there was no acceptable or logical reason why the missing kids would climb a mountain. Unusual locations of survivors. The location of several survivors, far beyond reasonable search perimeters, is another confusing aspect of the missing children cases. In an interview with KRON4 News that took place in San Francisco, Paulides explained that the kids he wrote about are sometimes found. For instance, 2 or 3-year-olds are recovered 10 to 15 miles from the point they were last seen, or they are found 5,000 feet higher in an elevated ground than where they disappeared. Furthermore, Their parents were certain their children could not walk that distance in such a short time, or climb that elevation at that stage of their lives, so it does not add up. Other survivors are found in areas that had been repeatedly searched by large search parties. Some missing children were found by searchers on the other side of mountain ranges. How these children traveled so far, often in severe weather and across harsh landscapes, baffles experienced outdoor enthusiasts as well. The travel distance of these lost and found children goes against comprehension from every possible perspective. Survivor Man simulates child disappearance. Les Stroud, popularly known as Survivor Man, endeavored to recreate a child's nighttime in one of Oregon's notably missing child cases. Midway through the attempt, Les said he couldn't go through with the experiment. He further stated that it wasn't right that the kid achieved that journey on his own. To be sincere, if such a veteran as Les could not successfully carry out the journey, there's no way a kid could do that naturally. The survivor children of the Yosemite disappearance usually relay stories about friendly bears or big wolves who looked after them, which makes these mysterious cases of missing children become nonetheless more puzzling. Polity's work prompted people to create a petition urging national parks to track missing people better. But people are still going missing in the park. Joel Thomasson. On September 6, 2021, a 31-year-old California hiker named Joel Thomasson, living in Tanaya, went hiking to Lake Eleanor, 9 miles or 14 kilometers away from his starting point, Hetch Hetchy Reservoir. He informed his family and friends that it would be a 3-day solo hiking trip through Yosemite National Park. He took along an inflatable kayak for exploring lakes and a hammock, indicating an expectation of both adventure and relaxation on the trip. According to the Associated Press, on September 9, 2021, his proclaimed date of arrival, his loved ones neither saw nor heard from him, so they called in rangers, alongside search helicopters, search dogs, and water patrols. According to the Turlock Journal, some experts believe he may have decided to expand his trip to a farther destination, perhaps Cherry Lake, without informing his family. However, he was never found. In November 2021, although Thomasson was never seen, heard from, or heard about, both dead or alive, his family organized a memorial service in his hometown, Tanaya, California, to honor his life. It was further reported that Thomasson left a wife of 7 years and a 2-year-old son behind when he left for his Yosemite hike. The whole county of Tuolumne joined in searching for Thomasson. They brought along equipment, kayaks, and boats to attempt to get the estimated perimeter of where he was last seen, hoping to find some traces of him. Unfortunately, till now in 2023, there is still no sign or trace of Thomasson. It is not known whether, like many other missing hikes in all of the national parks, Thomasson was kidnapped, murdered, or taken by something. There's also a possibility that he fell from a crevice or jumped off a cliff. But if that was the case, some evidence of him would have been found by all the trained professionals and outdoor caravans in the search parties created for him. It is just ridiculous how several of these hikers disappeared without a trace. Moreover, Thomasson's track, which went from Hetch Hetchy Reservoir to Lake Eleanor, is very much within the safe path. Matter of fact, the whole route system within Yosemite National Park is well traveled by passers-by, arrivals, and departures. So it couldn't be that he merely strolled off alone into the deep woods unaware of his destination. The more you think about his vanishing, the stranger it gets. And this is true of thousands of other disappearances out there. The curse of the Tanaya Canyon. In ancient days, white settlers arrived in Yosemite Valley and met an easygoing tribe of Native Americans called the Awani. Though peaceful, the Awani tribe sometimes stole livestock from their new neighbors, the white settlers. In the 1850s, the whites were tired of sharing their land with the disturbing natives, so the whites endeavored to migrate the Awani to a reservation on the outskirts of Fresno, California. The usually easygoing Awani, led by Chief Tanaya, surprisingly did not comply as expected. resisting the order to leave actively and vocally. Eventually, the white settlers dispatched a detachment of armed men led by Captain John Bowling to remove the tribesmen by force. Expectant that the submissive tribe would flee in fear, the tribesmen decided to stand up for their rights and fight instead. In the ensuing violence, Chief Tanaya's son was killed, which enraged him and prompted him to curse the valley against the whites. It is believed that the chief's words had come to pass since then, as Tanaya Canyon, and by extension, the whole Yosemite Valley, has been afflicted by all sorts of abnormal accidents, mysterious deaths, tragedies, and strange wonders, such as strange noises and paranormal movement of shadows. Compared to other areas in the park, the Tanaya area has way more occurrences of hiking and rock climbing accidents and fatalities, and several people have vanished here so much that it is now infamously named the Bermuda Triangle of Yosemite. It isn't only regular hikers and tourists that mysteriously vanish or die in Yosemite. Late John Muir, a famous naturalist and veteran mountaineer, was affected by this rumored curse as he almost died while exploring the canyon in 1873, the Awani Hotel. It remains unproven whether the canyon is cursed or not. Nonetheless, there are some allegedly haunted places in and around Yosemite Park. One of the most notorious of such places is the Awani Hotel, weirdly named after the aforementioned extinct tribe. In 1927, the hotel opened at a proximal distance from Canyon, and it was striking at its time of establishment because it was a huge deluxe hotel established in a vicinity renowned for predominantly small lodges and camping. In addition, the hotel became an annual hotspot for several tourists due to its splendid yet homely sensation and the luxurious ambiance of its scenery. However, the hotel's current reputation sprouts from being immensely haunted. Unknown species. Melissa, a trail maintenance worker at Yosemite National Park, had a puzzling encounter. It was noon, and she was heading back to the ranger station. When she was half a mile away, close to the trailhead, she sensed that she was being spied on. Thinking to herself that mountain lions don't usually appear in daylight, there had to be something else that was stalking her. In a bid to get away from whatever this stalker was, she hastened her steps, and then a very low, guttural growl emerging from off the trail was suddenly heard by her. She turned to look, and in front of her, 40 feet away, was standing a large dog creature. She described it as a large dog creature because she was certain it wasn't a dog, and it didn't look regular. Instead, it looked like a creature had been let out of hell. It was walking on all fours, and it ran from side to side of the trail, up a cliff of rocks. On getting to the rocks, it stood on 2 legs and easily navigated the terrain. Another worker at Yosemite National Park, Ashley, was on horseback and completing her daily rounds when the corner of her eye caught something. Being a former military and an all-time avid hunter, she doesn't scare easily. However, this disturbing creature that she noticed defied the laws of nature. A very pale-looking humanoid creature, with only black eyes and a mouth, comes crawling out of the edge of a tree line. The creature moved in a way that its arms and legs seemed broken, similar to creatures in horror movies. Its head was also moved in physically impossible ways. Baffled, Ashley gallops off on her horse quickly, back to the radio station. She reported her encounter and a subsequent investigation ensued. But the investigation was to no avail, as the creature was never seen again. Thank you for watching these fascinating disappearances happening in Yosemite National Park. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more of such mind-blowing videos.